This is the third of 4 short videos that TDI, the national charity that aims to reduce sexual offending and grooming in public places, has prepared to try and make some contribution to people running volunteer groups during this pandemic. In the third video, we're looking particularly at grooming and manipulation, both to ourselves and to other volunteers in the group, and potentially to people that you're providing services to. So how can we protect ourselves from people who want to use our group for ulterior motives? We'll particularly be thinking about ways in which we can be manipulated, for instance, into relaxing the rules that we've set to make it easier for individuals to cause harm. We'll talk about the signs to look out for and what to do in response.
The main problem we're concerned with is protecting our group from the tiny minority of people we know try to join volunteer groups in order to take advantage of others in various ways, not least sexually and financially. In the last session, we thought about how groups could best support and protect both clients and volunteers by recruiting carefully and setting good standards of working. This session is about protection from those who might want to join a volunteer group with criminal intentions. It's not only clients who are at risk from offenders. We too can be manipulated by them. Particularly if we care for children or vulnerable adults, volunteer groups are at risk from those who seek access for their own aims. Here's an example of what can go wrong. It's an article from the Torquay Herald Express from February 2015. And the headline, as you can see, is Devon sex offender jailed for grooming parents at church. A sex offender has been jailed for befriending families he met at church so he could gain access to their children. Richard Cassidy was so successful in winning their trust that they invited him to Christmas dinner. He did not tell them anything about his past as a convicted child molester who has been to jail before for using the church as a way to groom victims. Here's another case study, this time from BBC News in December 2018. A dangerous predator who sexually abused an 8-year-old boy while on a residential trip in South Yorkshire has been jailed for 4 years. Former teacher Adam King, 38, from Oxfordshire, assaulted the child in October 2017 while he was volunteering for a diabetes charity, police said. Here's an example of another type of abuse. It's a quote from Stephen McCarthy, Director of Action on Elder Abuse, quoted in the Express in December 2016. Get tough on lowest of the low carers who rob elderly, says charity boss. Courts must get tough on heartless criminals who prey on the elderly and vulnerable, the charity boss said last night. You'll hear a lot about the grooming of victims, particularly by sex offenders, and it does happen in volunteering contexts. 2 groups are at risk in volunteering situations: clients and their families, and other volunteers. Volunteering is a point of contact that allows offenders to look for and select victims. It provides a space in which they can build a relationship with the victim. It also creates situations in which the offender can provide potential victims with gifts or affection, which is an early stage in the grooming process. If community groups understand the process of grooming victims, they'll be better able to recognise the signs and reduce the risks. This is what the grooming process tends to look like. There will always be a stage of targeting victims, selecting victims. An offender will observe potential victims, select someone who seems vulnerable. He or she will try to befriend them, gain their trust, and share information with them, share secrets, share confidences, pretend to be a friend and a confidant to that person. Next, there'll be a period of friendship forming, so-called, making the intended victim feel special, giving them gifts or rewards, spending time together, listening, remembering, keeping secrets, pretending to be there for them, pretending to be their best friend. But at some point, the boundaries will be crossed. It could be accidental touching, it could be sexualized conversation that's not appropriate. But the boundary will be crossed, all in the guise of the offender offering protection to the victim. Next, depending on the age of the victim, there may be a pretense of a loving relationship. The impression that the offender and victim are boyfriend and girlfriend. There will be sexual intimacy, there will be the lowering of inhibitions, and they might introduce the victim to forbidden activities, clubs, when it's possible to go to clubs again, drugs and alcohol. The offender may also start being inconsistent, giving the impression that the attention and the gifts and the time can be turned on and off if the victim doesn't comply. And before very long, the victim finds him or herself in an abusive relationship. There will be sexual using. The offender will withdraw love as a punishment if the victim doesn't keep complying. The offender will reinforce the dependency of the victim, isolate the victim from family and friends, manipulate the victim by all kinds of psychological games. I've done this for you, so you owe me. There will be threats of violence. There will be the use of drugs to manipulate behaviour and make the victim more compliant. The victim might be encouraged to have sex with others or even forced to do so, and the victim will be given a sense of guilt, shame and fear, and almost blamed for what's happened. The take-home points from this session are very simple. Always be aware of the risk of grooming. We know that offenders do try to infiltrate volunteer groups in order to look for victims. But remember that there are other possible motives as well, such as stealing from or exploiting clients in other ways. Think about volunteers as well as clients becoming victims and how to reduce the risks. Think about situations where grooming might arise and be alert to possible manipulation and the stretching of rules by people with bad intentions.
This was the third of 4 short videos aimed at helping people who are running volunteer groups, particularly during this COVID crisis. In the fourth of the videos, we'll be looking at how we can spot the signs of abuse and neglect amongst our volunteers, but also amongst the clients that we're providing services to. You'll find all 4 videos and the exercises that go with them on our website, tdi.org.uk, and you can download those for free. You'll also find more information about other things that we do, and there is the opportunity, if you wish, to make a small donation to us.